Hey guys, what's up? JK with PornReboot here, your brother in this struggle. Today we have a very special guest with us. I have Sonny Arvado. He's an author. He's the founder of Strength by Sonny. And we met a long time ago, well, not a long time ago in online terms, when I was first getting started out online, and we collaborated on an article. But he's the author of the book of Tyrants and Tellers, and
Yep.
Tyrants and Tellers, and we're here to talk about his new groundbreaking book on social media and the influence of social media, INSTAGODS. So, Sonny, just tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, like you said, as far as how I kind of found myself here,
Yeah.
I'm originally from Long Island, New York. Eventually, went to school down in North Carolina, went to college and grad school down there. And then like everybody else who's around 22, 23, you're searching for answers, trying to figure out the next step. And, I thought I had some good advice on certain things, especially, fitness, girls, social skills, things like that. And then eventually around, it was beginning of 2014, I started my website, strengthbysonny.com. Been doing that on and off for about 5 years now. And, like Jay, like you said, we linked up on an article pretty early on in my blogging career, which was a lot of fun. We've kept in touch, and we're here now.
Awesome. I gotta say, one of the things you guys know that I rarely bring anyone on or rarely endorse anybody, but Sonny is one of the guys out there. When I read his book of Tyrants and Tellers, it's probably one of the best books on masculinity, most raw books on masculinity and society that I've ever read. Really scary and eye-opening. So he's got a very unique style. And also he's one of the dudes that I think it's very important, guys, for us to speak to men who are grounded in reality. And that's one of the things you'll notice about Sonny and why I actually have him on today. And you're gonna learn more about him as we dive deep into his book, InstaGods. I won't talk too much. I'll let Sonny do the talking. Sonny, give us a brief overview of your book, InstaGods. By the way, he was kind enough to give me an advanced copy. I read it, like literally I spent 2 hours and I took so many notes. I really did. I actually printed it out. I'm not kidding. So I love the book. Tell us a little bit about InstaGods, man, and what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, so social media, it's one of those things. It's everywhere right now. It's like the air. It's like the internet. We deal with it every single day. We can't really, grasp what it is exactly. We don't know what it is exactly. And it's just something that I've paid a lot of attention to over the past, 6-7 years, because I've just noticed that it has a definite impact on just about every aspect of human social interaction that you can imagine. It's just, everything from friendships to relationships to, and now here's the thing, I was making these realizations back in, 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
Now, as we're here now, like halfway through 2019, I mean, the game, it's just changed, just how much it really has developed into its own world that's competing, so one of the major premises of the book is that we live in a time where there's these two worlds competing for our consciousness. Real life interaction with people, and then the world of social media. Okay. And it's just, I talk about different statistics in there. One of the ones that sticks out to me is that, the average person, by the time it's all said and done, by the time they die, will have spent a total of 5 years of their life in that other world of social.
Damn.
And it's just one of those things that, over the years, I've just noticed that it has an impact on everything. Everything. A perfect example of this is that, say, you and a friend get into a conflict or a fight over something. What happens in the old days? What would happen? You might curse each other out, and cut each other off, maybe even block each other on block each other's phone numbers. But now we have this other factor, social media, that gets thrown into that. Well, what happens? like programming, what happens is it usually gets taken out first thing or expressed, first on social media. Mm-hmm. Johnny blocks Joey, and they block each other. They scrub their social media profiles of all evidence of the friendship, take off all the pictures, things like that. And this is especially the case with relationships, especially with Instagram, which is what the book focuses heavily on, Instagram specifically.
Yeah, we're going to get into that thing with relationships. And for those of you listening, those of you watching, if you're aware of my system, you already know how I feel about men who struggle with compulsive sexual behaviors. I've always believed that social media, well, not even believe, the studies out there that shows that the neural pathways which are activated when you use social media, that dopamine hit, that need for validation, all those neurochemicals that are released are the same ones that are released when you're viewing pornography and you have multiple tabs open, jerking off, looking for the next best shot. A lot of guys are surprised when they're on Instagram and, they're like, oh, I'm trying to stay off porn. But then you're following these influencers, these women who follow 3 or 4 of them, look at some hot chicks squatting or something. And next thing you know, you feel like watching pornography. So there are a lot of emotions that are involved. We're heavily invested in that. And I guess, what would you have to say a little bit about that? By the way, Sonny has a history with pornography. You have something to say on that briefly?
Yeah, so, and this is how we kind of first linked up. I told my story. Porn, every guy in this day and age kind of watches it. It was never, and now I've read things like, Your Brain on Porn and seen some of the stories guys have gone through. It wasn't to the point where it was like a total, like to the same level as like an addiction or something like that. It was just something that, you just did once in a while. And, I guess what you kind of liked about my story, I'm one of the few guys where I was just able to drop it cold turkey. Yeah. And I guess, my story, my case, what happened, flashback to about 8 years ago. It was around November 2011. It's probably the hardest partying I was ever doing in my life. And it was me and a couple friends. We went to a nightclub in another city. Went out, partied. We split the couple rooms, motel rooms, because we just wanted to crash there instead of driving. And I just remember waking up and kind of feeling like shit, like this is kind of like rock bottom, because like the motel room, it was terrible. It was like in the hood. And I just remember over the next couple of days on my forearm, I just had like hundreds of like these really bad bed bug bites. And that was just one of many things at that point kind of gave me a wake-up call, not to just, stop porn, but to just really just kind of cut back on the partying a little bit. And it was during that time, you're on the internet, you kind of fall into these loopholes, you don't know how you got there. Somehow, some way, I stumbled upon, I think a friend actually showed me, yourbrainonporn.com. And I thought it was interesting because I was just reading different people's stories and kind of like looking at the science behind it, just like, shit, like this shit's really bad for you. And it's one of those things that everybody's doing. And then, I kind of associated that experience and just that period of time in my life. And I just kind of dropped it, right then and there, and haven't looked back since.
Fantastic. Yeah. Guys, those of you who are, let's say you've watched till this point and you're just like, who the hell is this Sonny guy? All right. It's, what's your website again? It's strengthbysonny.com.
Strengthbysonny.com. Yeah.
Yeah. So some of you might want to hop on your phone and go check him out. Look for his post on pornography. He talks about that. It's an older post. But definitely check it out. Now, one of the things that's very, very interesting, and this is related to what we do here, we do talk about relationship dynamics, and that has a lot to do with pornography as well. But specifically, it's so interesting in the book, man, how you break down relationship dynamics. It's amazing. Sonny already has some of the best stuff. I browsed through your website before this call, and I was like, man, dude, you go deep into male-female dynamics in a very real way. What are some of the ways that social media has changed the way that men and women date and interact in their dating relationships?
Well, what it's done is that it's this extra thing, this extra X factor that has just gotten thrown into the dynamics of relationships at every point in a
Yeah.
relationship. Everything from the initial meeting, the initial interaction, to even the the initial courtship leading up to, when the dates start rolling through. And then eventually to the point where it's just casual dating. And especially once it reaches a point of, making things official. And not only that, making things official, but throughout the duration of the relationship. And then even leading up to, the drama that leads to the relationship's demise. Every step along the way, every part of, quote unquote, the relationship life cycle. In the social media age, social media is right there, front and center throughout it.
That's crazy. So is it possible that, how much do you think this has changed relationships? Because like what I see and what I hear from guys that I talk to, even friends, is like, you meet a woman, let's say a guy meets a woman on Tinder, and the woman eventually, let's say they move it off Tinder to their phones, and then they exchange whatever, Snapchat. Apparently these days, some guys tell me, I'm not on Snapchat, some guys tell me that you can't even get a woman's number these days. Apparently you have to just straight up jump to Snapchat. So do you mind walking us through real quick an example of just how a typical relationship today would progress through social media?
Yeah, so Snapchat's one. I like focusing on Instagram just because
Let's talk about Instagram. Yeah,
there's more. There's way more to kind of to get from that. So let's say a guy and a girl meet, okay, and they exchange Instagram. So right off the bat, they exchange Instagram and they say, all right, so yeah, let's hang out sometime, okay? So right then and there, once those Instagrams are exchanged, it's kind of off to the races now, because now the guy is going to look throughout that girl's entire posting history, aka Instagod term, intel gather. And in turn, the girl is going to do the same thing. And what they're doing, so right off the bat, what's kind of happened there is that Instagram, social media, especially Instagram, it's taken one of the most important things out of romance, which is that aura of mystery. There's a romantic element to not knowing every single detail about someone. All you know is just that, if it's, the first date, all you know is that, hey, the girl's sitting across from me. I don't know much about her. I know her name's Emily. She's very beautiful, and she's from Texas. That's all I know about her. But you know what? I'm going to use this time I got with her to kind of, extract these details and get to know her better. All right. I don't know anything about her. I don't know anything. What I know she goes to school. I don't, but I know nothing about her for the most part. Same thing from the girl's point of view. Instagram, it's taken that guesswork out because everybody posts their entire life on Instagram. So now, all right, they exchange Instagram. Well, the guy can look back to, all right, well, what evidence, what playbook does he have? Well, he has the playbook of every single post she's put on Instagram since June 14th, 2013. So he's going to look back at all these things and get to know her. She's going to do the same. Now, right off the bat, right here, girls especially. See, here's the thing, guys. We don't really care about status and things like that. We just, if a girl's attractive, we don't give a shit the quality of her pictures. We don't care about how many followers she has. We don't care about any of that. Girls, they care a little bit more about that stuff. So if a girl meets a guy, and even if she really likes him in person, but if she sees, well, he's got 47 followers, that's a red flag right there, because now she's got questions. Well, what's this guy's deal? Why does he only have 47 followers? He's socially irrelevant. He's a loser. You know what? I'm kind of having second thoughts here. So, little things like that come into play.
Yeah.
All right, but let's assume everything goes well. So you have the initial intel gathering, then you eventually have, and that intel gathering, it also involves, whether or not to check out stories here and there, each other's stories. In the book, I tell guys not to click on the stories because then it looks like, you're doing nothing but like checking up on a social media activity. But it also involves like who they're interacting with on social media, who's liking their posts, whose posts are they liking, who's commenting on their posts, whose posts are they commenting on. I mean, there's just so many things. Now, here's the thing. To the people that are listening to this, they're going to think I'm batshit crazy, like talking to them. But this is how people operate nowadays. And that's what this book was about. It's all the things that we know and we do it. It's just no one wants to admit that this is what's going on. And I've kind of put myself out there just saying like, no, this is how it is, But, so you have that initial intel gathering process, and then you get through all that, and then eventually you get to the actual dating, and that's pretty much, the real life chemistry that's handled obviously in real life. And if you end up, starting to sleep with each other, that happens. And all along the way, as you progress towards, an actual relationship and not just casually hooking up, how social media factors into this is that if it becomes apparent that the relation, like it's trending towards actual relationship, well, now both parties kind of they subconsciously know that they have to kind of abide by this rule set. These unwritten hidden rules of social media. I mean, there's too many to name here, but some off the top of my head. Like for instance, it would be in bad taste for a guy, if he's casually seeing a girl, to start flirting with another girl in her comment section. Vice versa, it's bad for the girl to do the same as well. But I think one of the biggest taboos that guys and girls both kind of know to stay away from is to not leak out this budding relationship too early. So for instance, if both parties are just casually hooking up, there can be a point. And again, everything I'm saying here, none of this is absolute. None of this follows like an exact like time frame. It's just, it's a rough estimate of how things generally tend to go. So like, for instance, posting a picture depicting a guy and a girl in like a coupling manner, doing that too soon, like that's kind of taboo. You don't want to do that. Neither the guy nor the girl wants to do that because it kind of shows that, maybe they're a little bit too needy. One of the things, and this is just something I noticed recently, a lot of times, and this isn't really a habit of guys, more so women do this, but as we get to the point where a relationship is sort of, it's right on the fence of, they've been casually hooking up behind the scenes, they know each other's friends and family and stuff like that. They just really haven't made it official yet. What the girl especially will do, she'll start to cryptically leak out, and this usually takes place in her stories, that there is a new guy in the picture. Now it won't be deliberate, and it won't tag him just yet, but it's going to be little things like maybe like a story of, she's sharing a plate of nachos with someone. Yeah. You don't know who it is, but it's just, you just see like a guy's hands in there. Or maybe you might see the guy from like the side profile, or maybe even in the story, you might see, you might see them depicted as a couple, but he won't be tagged. No one will know who he is eventually. And then eventually, that relationship kind of gets solidified. And now this is kind of where old school versus new school. Old school, when someone made a relationship official, how they did it, they just made it Facebook official. They would just say, Johnny in a relationship with Mary and Mary in a relationship with Johnny. That still happens nowadays, but the way people tend to announce relationships, especially on Instagram, is that they will make what I call an announcement post. So the girl, she'll have a post with the new guy, and it'll be something subtle. It's not really an announcement per se. It's something subtle. Like it might just be like one little heart emoticon or something like that, or just something like, "So lucky to have you" in the caption. It's not like a long, it's not like a long drawn out thing. And then the guy might do the same in turn. And then that signifies to everybody, well, they're in a relationship now. Now, in reality, they've probably been dating and hooking up for, maybe a couple months or so, but now they're kind of just making it like now.
Yeah.
So up until that point, they were very much acting like a couple and doing all the coupling things, but now they made it like official so that not only do their close friends and family members in real life know, now the digital public, their respective audiences also know as well. So that's just the point of making it official. And now throughout the whole relationship, both parties are still abiding by these unstated laws. And I guess the main theme to pay attention to is that social media engagement across the board, it shrinks. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is, for instance, like the guy and the girl know that their days of following members of the opposite sex, they're pretty much done now, because that could be interpreted as digital cheating. So the guy, like, he can't like follow like a bunch of hot girls now, because it will qualify as digital cheating. And the same thing, the girl, she can't follow like dudes now that she deems attractive, because it'd be deemed as digital cheating. So like little rules like that, as well as how they engage with other people that might comment on their posts, that's taken into consideration. And this is especially the case when with girls, especially because if a girl's attractive, even if she's in a relationship with someone, those those like worship comments in her commenting section, they're not real. They're not gonna just disappear.
True.
They're still going to happen. And this is where, drama starts, because if the guy's like insecure, or, he wants to, another term, digitally public mate guard his girlfriend, he'll hop in the comment section and instigate like comment wars. No, she's mine. She's all mine. All right. Fuck, man. And things like that. And then if the relationship's smooth sailing, it's smooth sailing. It just continues on like that. That's not the case a lot of the times, because drama, it's inevitable in relationships. The only difference now, social media, it's kind of like, if you pay attention, it's very common for drama to originate on social media and get carried out there. And then, if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, and the relationship ends and they break up or have a fight, social media, you also see it here, because what happens if there's a breakup, what happens? Then both parties, they tend to digitally scrape their profiles of the person that they were just dating. The dude, he'll take off all posts with, the girl that's now his ex-girlfriend, and the girl, she'll do the same thing. And then there's other little things, other little intricacies, whether or not they decide to make their account private, whether or not they even delete it for the time being. It really depends on the individuals involved and, the circumstances involved in the relationship.
Crazy, man. That's just insane how much social media has become a part of our culture. And with that being said, man, I want to bring something up. Very interesting thing you said in INSTAGODS. You mentioned that, I don't remember the exact study, but that cultures don't evolve to a certain extent traditionally, or rather historically, over a short period of time. And that this is one of the first times ever that culture has changed so drastically it's been actually less than a decade. So we have things like people now, there's a whole protocol to announcing your relationships. There are all these dynamics. He talks about deeper stuff in the books, guy, jealousy plot lines and selfies. And each of these things is broken down in detail. But what are your thoughts on how much our society and culture and dynamics and dating and male and female dynamics in particular have changed, particularly the timeline?
Yeah, so as I said in the book, because and this dates back to, I started studying culture and cultural trends probably end of 2015, beginning of 2016. So there's certain patterns, and and actually I wrote a post on this. Culture, any type of change you see in a culture amongst a massive population, it's not supposed to change fast. especially when that change is instituted by, the powers that be, whether it be, things like, anything related to feminism, women in the workplace, kind of how they're promoting like gay culture now.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that they were implanted into society long before today. We're talking about, early 20th century, mid 20th century, baby boomer generation, post World War II, things like that. But the culture was a certain way at that time. And if these ideas, which are radical when you really think about it, if these ideas were just thrown onto the public right away, it would have been a problem, because the people would have been like, wait, what the hell? Guys holding hands and stuff like that. Women in the workplace?
Too much. Yeah.
No, get the hell, what is this crazy shit? Get the hell out of here. Instead, what do you got to do? You have to slowly normalize these things, little by little, over time. It's like a little bit of change. It's like the metaphor of the frog, the frog in the boiling pot of water. If you throw it into the boiling pot of water right away, it's going to try to jump out, because it's going to be like, oh shit, it's really hot. But if you put it in a pot of water that's room temperature, and slowly turn up the heat, you have a better chance of, I guess, cooking them alive. It's the same, culture works the same way, which is why any type of like radical like ideology or radical change, it's not something that takes place, is normalized over just a few years. It's something, it takes decades, many decades to ease into the general public.
Yeah.
What kind of piqued my curiosity about social media is that all these trends and things that I talk about in the book, and I mean, I just talked about how much relationships have changed just because of social media. It didn't take decades this time around. It didn't even take one decade. These are things that really started to take shape, I'd say around 2012, because this is, that's when Instagram really first started taking off. And now we're here in 2019. So in 7 years, we find ourselves here, and the world, it is a much different, 2019 is a much different place than 2012 was. Much different.
This is true. And that's crazy. One of the things I've noticed, I was curious about this, I don't think you addressed this in the book, is speaking of things like feminism, gay culture, transgender, the agenda. I do believe there is something like that. You see that there's still pushback against it from certain sections of society. And I was wondering what your opinion on this was, that some of these movements out there see the impact of social media. Obviously, they are having a big impact thanks to social media. But I think that sometimes they move a little too fast, because they think they can move as fast as social media is changing our culture. But they don't realize that on the other end, people who oppose that, people who are more traditional, are also moving at their own pace on social media. So what are your thoughts on these different little worlds that are created? Like, obviously, you and I came into contact with each other because our worlds overlap in some way online. And we do share certain beliefs. You just know that immediately. So what are your thoughts on that, and how that's changing things, the opposing movements in society? Just briefly.
Yeah, well, I guess a good example of this, believe it or not. So you mentioned like transgenderism. I can tell you right now, if you're paying attention to where things are going, the next movement, unfortunately, what's kind of being normalized is pedophilia.
I've talked about this before.
Yes. Yeah, they're kind of normalizing that. They started putting articles. I remember The Atlantic wrote a piece on that in like 2015, and you see little things here and there. But I think that's a good example, because it's always and people, there's always going to be pushback against that. But it's, there's always stories about that in the news. And yeah, people are outraged, but I think what a lot of people, they miss the point of what normalization is all about. Normalization of anything is, you move towards normalization, good or bad, the more people are talking about it. So as long as that's, it's out there and people are talking about it, yeah, there's going to be people that are rallying behind that. And yeah, absolutely, there's going to be people that are opposing it. But as long as you have those two forces working against each other,
Hmm.
It contributes to its normalization, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that goes into you talked a little bit about propaganda. Is that
Hmm.
related to it as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Moving on, there was a quote that I wrote out here in my notes, and it was, "We live in a faithless era with no heroes."
Mhm.
I think it's talking about that. That kind of almost comes down to the premise of INSTAGODS. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I believe that was in. I want to say that was in the chapter called "The Church of INSTAGODS." So
Yeah.
yeah, we live in a time where there it is. It's a faithless. It's a faithless time. There isn't. The people have kind of turned their backs on any type of higher power, whether it be God in whatever form people used to worship a higher power in. There really isn't. They're just people don't have faith in a higher power. People don't have faith in themselves. We just live in a time of spiritual void.
Hmm.
Now, here's the thing: even though there's that spiritual void, that void's still there, and it still needs to be filled up with something. So, what do people do? They fill it up with something, and where's the place that they're spending most of their time? On their phone, specifically on social
Hmm.
media. That's where they're going to find it. So they're filling it up with whoever they're looking at Instagram, whoever's Instagram profiles that they're looking at every single day, whoever they're following on YouTube, all the time, whoever's YouTube videos they're watching all the time, and things like that. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be someone who's mega famous. It could just be whoever happens to be maybe on a little bit of a higher part on the totem pole within their local social circle or something like that.
Hmm.
So yes, we do. We live in this time where there's a faith. There is a void of faith, and unfortunately, people are filling it with social media. And when that happens, and I guess this is the premise of that chapter, The Church of INSTAGODS. That void, you can kind of look at it in two ways. Number one, people are looking to fill that void with whoever they can tune into on Instagram or YouTube or whatever other
Hmm.
platform they're tuning into. On the other side of that, because of the dream that social media promises people that, hey, you don't need to be LeBron James or Conor McGregor or
Hmm.
Katy Perry to have people tune into your life story, because that's what who we are as people. There's a lot of ways you can answer that, but every person wants their life story to kind of mean something, to be relevant, at
True.
least have people tuning into it. Okay, well, you don't have to be someone famous on TV or in the movies or anything like that. Using this, from the power of this thing that you carry around in your pocket, you too can be relevant. And all you have to do is you could do it all from your phone on social media. So
Hmm.
as a result of that, the second part of that is that people, they're also flocking to social media in attempt to become that someone or something that many people tune into.
Hmm. That's so crazy, man. Just
Yeah.
as you were talking, I was just like, man, it is crazy how the device has become almost our idol. You would think that in ancient times, people would try to tap into some sort of unknown up there or some sort
Yeah.
of group or some sort of spirituality. And now we pick this up, and this is where we spend most of our lives in here. That's
Well,
insane.
it's funny, let's see here. And I'm not religious by any means. I'm not a
Yeah.
Bible thumper or anything like that. But it's
Mm,
funny, they talk about in the Bible the mark of the beast. What's
yeah.
this thing that everybody has on their phone? An apple.
That's
What was
crazy.
Adam and Eve? They ate from the
Holy
tree.
shit. Yeah.
So it's not the Bible. It might not be as crazy as people think.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
and, in the Bible it talks about the mark of the beast. Where does the
mm,
mark of the beast start? They said it's going to start at the hand. What do we have in our hand all day long? We have these phones with this apple for a logo.
that's so crazy, man. No, that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Um, and then when it comes to moving on from that and the impact all these individuals have on our lives and people looking up to them as their god, so to speak, we also have our social lives heavily based on this, particularly dating. And there are a lot of guys. I tell them one of the impact that technology has on us today is that it limits our choices. A lot of men get on an app like Tinder, and they believe that if they run out of matches in those areas, or the women there are overweight, or they nobody matches with them, that is what their world is like. They're like, well, because nothing's happening on Tinder for me, that is an accurate representation of how my life is um, in the real world, when it isn't. The same thing
Yeah.
happens on Instagram, right?
Yeah. Well, I tell guys, I tell guys to just, I think it's better if guys just got off Tinder altogether.
I agree.
I got off of Tinder, and I used it like once in a while. I totally got rid of it. I want to say like May of 2018, and then I went through it. I went through a string where it was like the best time in my dating life ever. And I felt free. I'm not on the phone, just meeting like girls, like stunningly beautiful girls. I would never be on Tinder in the first place in real life. And the best thing I ever did was getting rid of Tinder.
Crazy. And for the guys watching, a lot of the guys watching this and those who follow me are struggling with pornography, are trying to kind of improve their relationships. We're gonna come back to Instagram in a moment, but for a lot of guys, when they hear stuff like, "Man, this guy went off Tinder and he met women in real life," on a very basic level. And I tell this to guys, they always hear it from me. I would like them to hear this from somebody else. And we didn't talk about this prior to this interview. We actually just got on the phone like 40 minutes ago on this interview. But I tell guys that you go out there, you meet women, you approach them directly or indirectly, doesn't really matter, and you have a normal conversation with them while looking as good as you possibly can. And that's pretty much all you need to do if you're getting started. And they go like, well, I don't even see that being a possibility. Can you tell guys what you do? Just, I know you're in a relationship now, but back when you were single, which wasn't too long ago, how did you meet women when you got off Tinder? Just for the guys watching and listening.
You have to have the mindset, any place, any time. So what I mean by that, so a lot of guys, they kind of get suckered into this. They kind of close their world off because they think, well, if I'm going to do it in real life, I got a couple options. I need to always go to the bars and the clubs, or do day game at a mall or something like that. You don't necessarily have to do that. I think the first step is, you need to live a life where the majority of your time is spent outside of your house. So you need to be out and about in public, and you need to have that mentality that, any place, anytime. If you see an attractive chick, you gotta put yourself out there and make a move. Now, you don't have to approach it in a creepy way, but I like to call it, capitalize. You want to capitalize on situations, and you just make small talk. There's something as simple as, hey, how's it going? You got to put yourself out there. I coach guys like once in a while, and I followed up with one of the guys. He said he's recently been in a slump since like February. I was like, all right, well, so what's going on? I mean, how many chicks have you talked to since then? And it's just like, I only one. It's just like, dude, you got to put yourself out there, man. Like, over a couple months' time, like, you can't just talk to just one. You can't, as far like from a stranger standpoint, you can't just talk to one chick. Like, you got to put yourself out there. You got to be talking to, you don't want to like be like an approach monster or anything, but you got to put, you have to. You can't talk to zero, so you got to put yourself out there. And when life, I like to think of it this way: when life throws you out, gives you an opportunity, you got to take it. So if you're like, a perfect example, I remember, I always tell people this story. There's a guy, he's telling a story. He's like, he's fine. He can go to the bars and clubs and approach as many girls as possible.
Yeah.
But he told the story where he's like, yeah, I went to the doctor's office and I'm in the waiting room and there's no one there. And there was this hot chick just sitting there. And, I froze up. I didn't say anything. And then she went in for an appointment and then that was it. And I was like, yeah, man, I mean, you blew it because you had a hot chick there. Life kind of put a golden opportunity on a plate and you didn't take it. You didn't capitalize on that opportunity. Hey, you know what? Maybe it wouldn't have worked out, but maybe it would have worked out. Who knows? You could be dating that girl right now, but you'll never know. You have to take advantage of those opportunities because, not taking the shot, that's the worst thing you could do with anything in life.
Definitely. No, I agree. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
also on that note, it brings me back to another a little note I took there where you tell the story from, I believe it's Scott Adkins' book. I forgot the name. It's got a long title.
Scott Adams.
Scott Adams. I'm sorry. I said Scott Adkins is the martial arts guy.
Yeah. Dilbert. Yeah.
Dilbert, the Dilbert creator. He's got a fantastic book. I love it.
Yeah.
He looks at the world in a different way, but it's actually a recommended read for everybody. He talks about this story of, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but something about a bachelorette and, on The Bachelorette, the show, a guy jokingly introduces himself as a broke loser, and he probably isn't. And later on, he tries to change this way that he presented himself initially, and it doesn't work. She still sees him as a broke loser. And in your group, I shared a story about how I'm in a relationship now. Back when I was dating, when I would show up to meet a woman, my status, just because of the way I looked and my accent and my build and my long hair, I used to just go and I started jokingly presenting myself as whatever they thought I would be, like a soccer player or an NFL player. And they would buy it at first. And later on, when I would go home with them, before I did, just out of ethics, because I didn't want anything to come back at me later, I would just jokingly tell them what I really did.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, they didn't care. They had already told their friend. They just didn't care. They weren't mad. They had gone on this biochemical journey with me in the time we were talking in the bar or outside, and they had decided this is the guy I am, and they believed it. How does something like Instagram, how does this play out on social media, the way we present ourselves, and the way a woman sees a man prior to dating him when she sees his social media?
Yeah, so that's discussed in the propaganda chapter, and specifically it relates with what I call anti-propaganda, or trying to erase the memory of an idea once it's implanted. So, when I talk about this, I really focus on influencers, and when influencers, regardless of the niche, getting exposed for whatever. And I make the assertion that internet exposés for whatever niche, they really don't do anything, because they don't do anything, number one, because once an idea is implanted in someone's mind about someone, it's very hard to erase that idea and replace it with something else that was bullshit about this person, this is the truth. No, it doesn't work like that, because what you have going against that even more is if they really are someone who has a faithless void and they're looking to fill it with something. Well, I just found out that, this person that has been replacing my lack of faith and just a spiritual void that I have, well, the information just came out that they're full of shit. Like, everything that is wrong. No, that's not right. I'm just going to continue going, believing what I've been believing all this time. And that's especially the case if they've sunk a significant amount of time and money into that brand, or into buying into them. Yeah.
Do you remember? Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, no, what were you going to say?
I don't remember what happened way back with Shreds and the whole, there's this supplement company called Shreds, where they found a lot of their influencers photoshopping. And it seemed, I was like, oh, this is going to crush the company. But they're still around. They're still doing well. And it was typically, if this happened in the papers, in the newspaper before Instagram, this can crush a company. Like, yours, not only they don't have stock, they're not big enough, but you would destroy your brand. Or the Jake Paul, that dude that I don't know the exact story, but I know he did something that years ago would have destroyed him, but he's still pretty successful.
Yeah, like I said, people, we live in a time of, people that have a void. and they fill it with someone, no matter who or what they fill that void with. If something challenges that, they will fight tooth and nail to avoid any inconvenient truth that tries to disrupt that faith that they've implanted into it.
Yeah.
And it's like that, it's like that with, so getting back to Instagram, it's like that with image. So many people bullshit their online image, their online avatar with, just like cars,
Yeah, the fake ballers.
Yeah, the ballers, like, oh, I have like 3 Lamborghinis and stuff like that. When in reality, they're just using the Toro app to just rent these things for a couple days, and post-loading, meaning taking a bunch of content, photos and videos, and slowly leaking it out and things like that. Even if people found out that stuff about their favorite person on social media, it wouldn't mean anything because they would just block it out. Like, no, they're how I am. They're the successful millionaire.
Yeah, and they do, and we do that. And now I'm starting to understand the concept of you framing it as a religion, because people typically do that with their religions. You point out some discrepancy in the Bible or whomever's holy book. Again, nothing against Christians or Christianity, but you point out something, and they have so much invested in it that it just goes over their head. They're like, no, but I believe in it. No one's perfect. Now that's crazy. And to round things up, Sonny, there's a phrase you use, which is the last thing on my notes here, and it comes to dating, sliding into the DMs. The great thing about INSTAGODS is, Sonny takes a stance, but at the same time he shows you how to. He cautions you on a lot of things, but you also show guys how to take advantage of it, particularly in dating. A lot of the other stuff, like making money on there and what you want to do, you leave it up to the reader to make their own decision on that. There's no real stance on that. People who read the book, those of you who read it, will be clear on his moral stance. But you talk about being a cool, attractive insider. And the reason I'm bringing this a phrase up, cool, attractive insider, is that for any man who is going to be dating in today's world, for those of you who are listening or watching, that means you've decided that, hey, I've dealt with not decided, but you've dealt with your issue with pornography, and you've set boundaries with social media, and you still want to use it because it's very much a part of our world. But if you're going to use it for dating, there's a very specific set of rules you need to understand and a way you need to portray yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about Cool Attractive Insider?
Yeah, so basically, Cool Attractive Insider, it's basically the catch-all term or catch-all phrase that I use for basically what guys need to be in this day and age. And in this day and age, you're either, you want to be considered by women, by majority of women in the dating market, you want to be considered what I call a viable sexual option, meaning a girl takes a split second to kind of, look at you, talk to you, kind of feel you out, and you want to be, as often as possible, a yes for that girl. Would you sleep with that guy? Yes. Okay. That's what every guy should be shooting for. Okay. And I see, especially the guys that are in the pickup stuff, they're just not that guy. They're not. Like most guys like that gravitate towards like the pickup stuff, especially, they have glaring flaws in their image, glaring image inadequacies, and it leads to a whole slew of problems, not only with their actual results with women, but, and because of that, it reflects in their psyche and their confidence as well. It's not, it might sound like cookie cutter advice, but that confidence is very important. It is very important, confidence and things like that. But it's very hard to be confident when deep down, you're not good enough. So my message to guys is that, no, you don't want to fake. You don't want to come up and look for every single, trick, tip, and hack to sort of fake it. No, my advice to guys is to become the real deal. It's kind of, I use the metaphor to kind of explain what's going on with guys that kind of gravitate towards this stuff. You're in like a sinking canoe, right? And that canoe is sinking because there's a hole in the bottom of it. what most guys are doing, they're in this sinking canoe. They're coming up with every single way to make sure that the canoe doesn't sink. So what are they doing? They're throwing stuff overboard, every little thing they can find to throw overboard. When in reality, they should be trying to find something to plug the hole so that water isn't, getting through the bottom. That's what fixing image inadequacies and getting to a point where you're a guy who fits in that category of cool, attractive insider. That's how that comes into being. Now, here's the thing. Is there an exact formula for that? No, there isn't, because, there's guys, all different shapes and sizes, all different races and backgrounds, all different socioeconomic standings that can do that. The only advice you can really give is to, make sure you're looking your very best.
Definitely. And I know that there are going to be guys who are watching this, listening to this, who are going to be like, well, how exactly do I become a cool, attractive insider? And I assume what you're saying is that this varies for each individual guy. And it sounds like it's also something that is relatively new in our culture that men kind of have to figure out. And as we come to a conclusion, you were telling me earlier that you do have a community that you've put together for men who really want to understand this part of their life better. They want to learn how to navigate this new world that we're living in, and they're totally clueless to it. Can you tell us a little bit about what you put together?
Yes, exactly. So obviously I have the book INSTAGODS, and this is explained in detail. This is chapter 20. It's called the INSTAGODS group, and all the details are explained in there. Basically, I think a lot of guys are trying to look for what could I do to sort of just make life better. And I'm from the school of thought, and I think, I think society is on my side as well, in that the most important thing is your image in real life, your physical image, everything about you, from your physique to your fashion to the way you carry yourself, things like that. So real life image, and of course we live in the social media age, digital image as well. And this group, the INSTAGODS group, the point of it is to serve as a resource for guys to listen to the advice. I'm going to be dropping exclusive content in there, live streams, all kinds of things, where I'll be helping guys understand image in 2019 and beyond in the social media age, so that they can truly win. Because a lot of guys, they get caught in what I call like the self-improvement hamster wheel, where they kind of delude themselves into thinking, I'm really improving here. I'm making all kinds of progress. And it's just like, well, are you really? If you're, you can't run away from this shit. In real life, are you really making tangible improvement? That's what tangible improvement is. And for you sports guys, again, hardware gets things done. That's what this life's about. It's about hardware. When LeBron James first left the Cleveland Cavs in 2010, why did he sign with the Heat? Because Pat Riley sat, when he was meeting with LeBron, telling him, "Oh, what can we do for you?" He put his 7 championship rings down on the table, just like, this is what we're about here. Hardware gets it done. That's what you should be looking for, real tangible improvement. And that's what the INSTAGODS group is going to be about. It's about real tangible improvement for you in real life. Because my true expertise is health and fitness. I've been into bodybuilding for like 13 years. I've been doing it since 2006. You can't really see it on the camera, but yeah.
Yeah. We can see it in the neck, man.
So I am a true believer in embracing the fit lifestyle and working out and eating healthy and taking care of yourself, and everything else flowing from there. Okay, so that's what my philosophy is. The importance of image. You want to take care of, and actually we didn't even talk about this, but I can mention the importance of, how do you win the image game? It's very simple. Across both in real life and in the digital realm, you maximize the attractiveness of your image in real life. And then having digital image success, it's a matter of digitally documenting that attractive image, that attractive life that you've built in real life. And that's what it is. Because again, I see guys talking about like, oh, how do I create a good Instagram? And again, they're trying to throw stuff overboard instead of plugging up the hole. So they try to come up with all these different tricks, tips, hacks, buying followers, getting fake engagement, digitally papering the house. They try to come up with all these tricks when in reality, they should be across the board. Their game plan should be to put in the work and become the real thing. All right. And that's what the INSTAGODS group is going to be about.
Awesome. You know, a lot of guys might be listening to this and going, you know, you might be thinking, hey, that sounds a little bit superficial. You know, like I need to work on my image because a lot of the messages we receive from society and from our family is, you know, work who you are on the inside and learn how to accept yourself and love yourself. And you're saying, which I agree with, by the way, that we live in a world where your image is very important. In fact, image was always important. It's just more important than it's ever been. What do you have to say to those guys who are a little bit skeptical, who might be like, man, this Sunny guy is full of shit. Like, you know, like, do I need to really work on my image? I'm good as I'll just accept myself. What do you have to tell them about the reality of their dating life, their careers, and just their happiness as an accepted member of society today?
Yeah. I mean, my answer to that would be, you know, first and foremost, never ever pay attention and take at face value what people say. You always want to study their behaviors. So, you know, watch any interview with any woman and any attractive woman, and they ask, well, what do you like? You know, what do you look for in a guy? What do you like about a guy? Oh, I like a guy who's funny and nice. They say that, but then study the behavior. You know, oh, do looks matter to you? No, I really like a guy's personality and things like that. That's what they say. Well, now go study their behavior. Look at their, you know, if you can, look at their track record of the types of guys that they've dated. You know, it's like that with everything. You never want to study. Don't pay attention to what people say. Always pay attention to their behavior. And I mentioned it, you know, pay attention to the most important mirror you're ever going to find is society's mirror, specifically society's mirror, you know, when you're looking into it. So if you want to know how important image is for you, then, you know, simply pay attention to how society, their treatment of you changes when you're looking bad versus, you know, you're looking good. All right. You'll find that the better you look, you know, the better society is going to treat you. Men will show you more respect. Women, they'll show you more respect and more, you know, they'll be more flirtatious to you. They'll consider you more of a sexual option. You know, when you're not taking care of yourself and you're not looking good and you just don't give a shit, well, society's treatment of you is going to reflect that as well. So guys that aren't going to the gym and things like that, yeah, other guys, they're not gonna take you as seriously and they're gonna see you as a pushover. And on the flip side of that, yeah, women, you know, they're not gonna really see you as like a candidate to possibly date. They're kind of gonna just see you as just this guy that, you know, that they work with or whatever.
Boom. No, I love it, man. I co-sign everything Sonny just said in the last 2 minutes. And brothers, I say it over and over again that when it comes to, let's switch back to pornography, which is what this channel is about.
Yeah.
When you are ending your behavior with pornography, it's a transformation, especially for those of you who have been struggling with it as something compulsive. Whatever pain that you've been medicating, the reality is when you end that behavior, more often than not, you have to deal with the pain. And for many men, the pain comes from their relationship with others and their relationship with women. And if you're one of those brothers who finds himself isolated all the time, I think what Sonny said just now is very important, which is look at how society treats you and then adjust your image. And I really believe it may sound superficial, that looking better, dressing better, and getting that validation, it's not a bad thing. Getting that validation when you've never had anything from society can literally change your life, you know? So guys, there's a link to the book INSTAGODS. I've read it. It's an amazing book. I need to read it again because Sonny goes deep into many topics. There's a link to the book INSTAGODS in the description below for those of you who are watching the YouTube video. For those of you who are listening to this on the PornReboot podcast, if you go down to iTunes, if you go to the description, there's a link to the book and to Sonny's group, the INSTAGODS group. Sonny, thank you so much for joining us on the PornReboot podcast on the YouTube channel. Really appreciate your time today, man.
Definitely. Again, thanks for having me on.
Awesome.